Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be looking at how do we pick the comparison function when we're going to use either a direct or a limit comparison. In this case, all I'm going to do is give you what the comparison function would be, in my opinion, and then I'm going to let you go ahead and try running the rest of the test, and then I will post the fully worked out solutions online later this evening, so that way you get a chance to try them yourself. Okay, so I picked up four sort of typical examples here. The first one, we have the sum of 1 over 2 root n plus cube root of n. And again, I always like to think of these in terms of fractional exponents. So 1 over 2 n to the 1/2 plus n to the 1/3. And the way I pick my comparison function, I say, okay, what's the biggest thing in the numerator and biggest thing in the denominator is sort of how I tend to think of it. And so obviously the numerator is just a 1, but the square root is always going to be bigger than the cube root. So I'm going to think of my b sub n for my comparison to be 1 over 2 to the 2n to the 1/2, although the 2 really isn't a necessary thing. We just use 1 over n to the 1/2. So that's how I go about choosing my comparison function. And in this case, I probably do a limit comparison because I don't want to have to mess with all the inequalities. And you'll notice I tend to prefer limit comparison to direct comparison unless it's just really obvious. Okay, for a second one here, let me move this up a bit. Again, we have this n plus 1 over n squared root n. Again, I always want to write things in terms of fractional exponents rather than roots. It just makes life a little bit easier. This is just n to the 5/2 down below. So again, I look at the ratio of my leading terms, my biggest terms. Well, the n is the dominant term in the numerator, and the n to the 5/2 is dominant term in the denominator. So I'm going to take my b sub n to be n over n to the 5/2, which is 1 over n to the 3/2. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Again, that's going to be my comparison function. Now I'm going to probably use limit comparison test. Let's go to the next one. Here we have root n times over n squared plus 1. And so, again, my root n is n to the 1/2. And so we get this. And again, the big term in the numerator obviously is root n, and the denominator is n squared. So I'm going to take my b sub n to be n to the 1/2 over n squared, or 1 over n to the 3/2. Just coincidence, those last two are the same, but because we're really getting the same process here. And then finally, and that's a little different, 1 over n times the nth root of n. Now if you write that in exponents, now the trick is what's getting biggest here. Now if you take the nth root of n and look at the pattern, you go square root of 2, cube root of 3, fourth root of 4, you'll notice they aren't growing. They're actually shrinking. So it's not getting very big. It's not, as a matter of fact, it's not getting big at all. If you remember from our limits way back in 10.1, actually the nth root of n approaches 1. So it's not getting big. So my dominant term in the denominator is 1 over n. So I'm going to take my b sub n to be 1 over n. And you might recall, for this one you're taking a limit. This is one of the freebies that we gave in 10.1. Limit as n approaches infinity of nth root of n is 1. So you can use that freely. Okay, so here are your comparison functions for these four. It would be good practice to go ahead and work them all the way through. And I will post solutions to these 4 also out on the web probably sometime later this evening. So with that, that's all of the material that will be covered on test 3. I'll put out an announcement on Blackboard, but you'll want to pick a day next week to take the test. You can pick whichever day works best for your schedule. Just email me with the day that you're choosing so that I can plan on sending you the test at the appropriate time. Hopefully your weekend is restful and you have a good Easter. And I really do thank the class for keeping up on things. All the homework's been coming in right on time, and there will be no homework beyond the 10.4 until after Easter break. So even if I post something over the weekend, nothing will be due until later next week. So have a great weekend.